My wife walked through the front door after a 4-day trip, dropped her bags in the hallway, and before she even took off her coat or asked how I was doing, she looked at me and asked when my next commission check would clear. That was the moment something inside me finally went quiet. Not angry, not shocked, just tired. The kind of tired a man feels when he realizes he has been carrying an entire marriage by himself for far too long. I'm 44 years old. I manage regional sales for a heavy machinery company, a job that keeps me traveling constantly and working 60-hour weeks. It's exhausting work, but I always believed it was worth it because everything I built was for us. Emily and I had been married for 9 years. For the first 7 years, we were partners. Real partners. We laughed together, struggled together, planned our future together. When life got difficult, we leaned on each other. But over the last 2 years, something changed in her. Slowly at first, then completely. She quit her administrative job and told me she wanted to launch a consulting business. She said she wanted more purpose, more freedom, more fulfillment. I supported her without hesitation. I paid the mortgage, covered every bill, and gave her money for courses, branding, travel, networking events, and startup expenses. But the business never launched. There was always another delay, another excuse, another expense. And somehow, no matter how much money disappeared, it was never enough. The trip she had just returned from was supposed to be a wellness retreat in Sedona with her friend Olivia. Emily told me she needed time away to reset mentally so she could focus on healing our marriage. She asked me for $2,000 to cover the trip. I transferred the money immediately. I always did. At the time, I believed providing for my wife was my responsibility. I thought love meant sacrificing quietly and asking no questions. What I didn't understand back then was this. Providing for someone you love is honorable. Allowing yourself to be used is something entirely different. Everything fell apart on a Saturday morning. I was standing in the middle of a hardware store comparing drill sets when my phone rang. It was Olivia. Her voice sounded casual. She asked if I could help her move a couch later that afternoon. At first, the question didn't register. Then my stomach tightened. "Wait," I said slowly. "Aren't you in Arizona with Emily?" There was silence on the line. Heavy silence. The kind that tells you the truth before words ever do. Finally, Olivia spoke carefully. "Michael, I haven't seen Emily in almost 3 weeks. She told me she was traveling with you." I didn't yell. I didn't panic. Men our age don't always have the luxury of falling apart the moment disaster arrives. Sometimes you learn to sit still while your world collapses quietly around you. I told Olivia there must have been some confusion, ended the call, and walked straight to my truck. My hands were shaking by the time I got home. I went directly to my office and started reviewing our bank records. For over a year, Emily had made me feel guilty for working so much. Every argument somehow turned into a conversation about how neglected she felt. She told me my job was destroying our connection. She said she felt emotionally abandoned, and every solution she proposed required money. She needed expensive dinners so we could reconnect. She needed designer clothes to feel confident again. She needed spa weekends because her stress was becoming unmanageable. She needed a personal trainer because her health was suffering. And every time I paid, not because I was weak, because I believed her. I thought I was fixing my marriage. But as I studied the statements, a pattern emerged so clearly it made me sick. Cash withdrawals from unfamiliar neighborhoods. Large transfers through payment apps to someone named Jay Thorne. Strange charges at restaurants and hotels during times she claimed to be with friends. The so-called wellness retreat wasn't a retreat at all. It was a getaway, and I had funded every second of it. When Emily stood in the kitchen later that evening asking about my commission check, I noticed details I would have once ignored. The slight sunburn on her shoulders, the distant look in her eyes, the complete absence of warmth when she spoke to me. "The check clears Friday," I said carefully. She nodded immediately. "My SUV needs new tires," she replied. "And I found this business coaching program. It's $5,000, but honestly, it could change everything for us." For us. The words almost made me laugh. Then she added softly, "If I start earning money, maybe you won't have to work yourself to death anymore." The manipulation was so smooth. so practiced. She took my exhaustion, my loyalty, my guilt, and turned them into tools she could use against me. In that moment, I realized the woman I married was gone. The woman standing in front of me no longer saw me as her husband. She saw me as a resource, a provider, a wallet with emotions attached to it. But I didn't confront her. Anger makes people reckless. Silence makes them careless. For the next 3 days, I acted exactly like the man she expected me to be. Quiet, tired, distracted. Meanwhile, I hired a private investigator. Within 48 hours, he handed me a file that changed everything. Jay Thorne's real name was Jake. He was 31 years old, 13 years younger than me. On social media, he called himself an entrepreneur and motivational consultant. In reality, he appeared to survive by attaching himself to financially stable women. No real business, no stable income, a leased luxury car with overdue payments, an eviction notice pending against his apartment. And then came the photographs. Emily sitting across from him in an upscale restaurant I had unknowingly paid for weeks earlier. Emily handing him a thick envelope outside a bank. Emily letting him drive the SUV I bought for her. I stared at those pictures for a long time, not because they broke my heart, but because they finally explained the last 2 years of my life. Every argument, every accusation, every guilt trip, every emotional speech about how I was too absent. It had all been part of a narrative she created to justify what she was doing behind my back. She painted me as the neglectful husband so she could excuse her betrayal without feeling guilty about it. And worst of all, I had believed her. I spent years apologizing for sacrifices I made to support our future while she quietly dismantled the marriage behind closed doors. That realization hurt more than anything else. Not the lies, not the money, not even the betrayal. It was the humiliation of loving someone sincerely while they slowly learned how to take advantage of that love. Wednesday evening arrived quietly. Emily sat across from me at the dinner table, sipping wine and watching me carefully. "You've been distant lately," she said gently. "Are you stressed about work again?" I looked at her for a long moment, at the familiar face that suddenly felt like a stranger's. Then she smiled softly and said, "You know, if you paid for that coaching program, I could finally start contributing financially. I hate seeing you carry all this alone." For a second, I almost admired how convincing she sounded. Almost. Instead, I simply nodded. "The bonus hits Friday," I said calmly. And as she smiled with satisfaction, believing she still had complete control over the situation, I realized something important. For the first time in years, I was no longer afraid of losing my marriage. Because deep down, I already understood the truth. I had been fighting to save something that no longer existed. Monday morning arrived, and for the first time in years, I felt completely calm. Not happy, not relieved, just clear. The fog that had surrounded my marriage for the last 2 years was finally gone. And once the truth settles into your chest, pretending becomes impossible. At breakfast, Emily stood near the kitchen counter, scrolling through her phone while talking excitedly about the future. "You know," she said with a bright smile, "once this coaching program starts working, everything's going to change for us. I really think this is the beginning of something big." I looked at her quietly. She still believed I was the same exhausted man she had manipulated for years. The same husband who would apologize, transfer money, and continue sacrificing himself just to keep the peace. She had no idea the version of me she controlled no longer existed. "I'll handle everything Friday," I said calmly. "We'll restructure the finances and get you properly set up." Her eyes lit up instantly. "Really?" she asked, almost shocked. "You do that?" I nodded slowly. "Absolutely. You deserve exactly what's coming to you." She smiled, misunderstanding every word. The next morning, I took a personal day off work. I drove across town visiting 3 different banks and spent the entire day organizing my financial life. I didn't hide money. I wasn't reckless or dishonest. I simply stopped leaving myself exposed. I redirected my future paychecks into a private account under my name. I removed myself from the joint credit cards so no new debt could be created in my name. I legally transferred half of our liquid savings into a separate account, exactly as my attorney advised before any papers were served. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Not because I was winning, because I was finally protecting myself. That afternoon, I called Olivia and told her everything. There was a long silence after I explained what I had discovered. When she finally spoke, her voice carried pure disappointment. "I can't believe she did this to you," she said quietly. Neither could I. Olivia agreed to come over Friday evening under the excuse of dinner. I needed someone there as a witness, someone calm and objective. I knew how situations like this could spiral once the truth came out, and I refused to allow false accusations or emotional chaos to control the narrative. Everything was now in place. Emily believed Friday would be the day she received another large transfer. Meanwhile, Jake was likely waiting for his next financial rescue without realizing the source of that money had finally woken up. Friday arrived slowly. After work, I sat alone in my truck outside the house for nearly 10 minutes. I stared at the home I had spent years paying for. The front porch I repair myself every summer. The lawn I mowed after 12-hour shifts. The walls that once held memories of laughter, holidays, and dreams for the future. And I realized something painful. Loyalty cannot purchase love. You can give someone comfort, security, patience, and devotion, but if they lack integrity, they will eventually use your kindness against you. I finally opened the truck door and walked inside. Olivia was already there, sitting stiffly on the living room sofa, tension written all over her face. Emily, meanwhile, was in the kitchen humming softly while preparing dinner. She looked happy, excited, like someone anticipating a reward. The moment she saw me, she smiled warmly. "Hey, you're home," she said. "Did you check your account? Did the commission clear?" "It cleared," I replied calmly. Her entire posture brightened. "Perfect," she said quickly, opening her laptop on the counter. "I already have the information ready for the transfer. This coaching program is going to change everything for us." I leaned quietly against the kitchen counter. Then I spoke. "I didn't transfer the money into the joint account, Emily." She froze. The smile disappeared immediately. "What do you mean?" she asked carefully. "I moved the money into my private account," I said evenly. I also separated my finances and canceled the shared credit cards. For a moment, she simply stared at me. Then her eyes shifted toward the living room, where Olivia sat silently watching everything unfold. A flash of irritation crossed her face before panic quickly replaced it. "Michael, what are you talking about?" she asked nervously. "Why would you do something like that?" I slowly removed a large envelope from inside my jacket and placed it on the kitchen island between us. I realized something important. I said quietly, "I'm no longer interested in financially supporting another man." The color drained from her face so fast it frightened even me. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She looked at the envelope, then back at me, then toward Olivia again. The confident, demanding version of Emily vanished completely. What remained was fear, pure fear. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. "Michael, you're confused. You've been overworking yourself. You're imagining things. Stop." My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. For the first time in years, I spoke without guilt, without apology, and without fear of upsetting her. "The photographs are in the envelope," I continued calmly. "The bank transfers are in the envelope. The ATM records are in the envelope. Every lie you told me for the last year is sitting right there." Her breathing became uneven. She looked desperately toward Olivia for support, but Olivia slowly stood up instead. The disappointment on her face was unmistakable. "I honestly defended you for so long," Olivia said softly. "But this is cruel." Emily's eyes filled with panic as Olivia picked up her purse. "You should be ashamed of yourself," Olivia added quietly before walking toward the front door. The house became painfully silent after she left. Then Emily broke down. Tears poured instantly. Apologies followed. Excuses. Promises. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back before she could touch me. "It meant nothing," she cried. "I was lonely. You were always gone. I felt abandoned." I looked at her for a long moment. "I was working to provide the life you asked for," I said quietly. Every extra hour I spent away from home was spent trying to secure our future. She kept crying, but something inside me had already detached. Because once trust dies completely, tears stop sounding sincere. You didn't make one mistake, Emily, I continued. A mistake happens once. What you did took planning, repetition, deception. You used my guilt and my loyalty against me for over a year. I opened the envelope again and removed another document. My hands didn't shake this time. These are divorce papers, I said calmly. My attorney filed them this morning. Her expression changed instantly. The sadness disappeared, replaced by panic. You can't be serious, she whispered. I am. Where am I supposed to go? She snapped suddenly. I don't even have enough money for an apartment. The shift in tone revealed everything. The performance was over. I looked at her one final time. Ask Jake, I said quietly. Then I turned and walked down the hallway toward the guest room. Behind me, I could hear her crying again, but I never turned around. Because some endings stop being tragic once you finally understand the truth. A week later, Emily discovered something else. The moment the money stopped flowing, Jake disappeared. Her calls stopped being answered. Her messages went unread. Eventually, he blocked her completely. And honestly, that hurt her more than the divorce did. Because people who build relationships on selfishness eventually become victims of selfishness themselves. The divorce took 8 months to finalize. Financially, it hurt. Emotionally, it exhausted me. But peace has a price, and sometimes freedom costs more than staying miserable. Still, I would pay that price again without hesitation. What I learned from the experience changed me forever. A man's value should never be measured by how much money he provides. Real love does not constantly demand proof through sacrifice. Real partnership does not weaponize guilt. And the moment someone begins treating your kindness like an unlimited resource, you must stop and ask yourself whether you're truly loved or simply being used. These days, my life is quieter, simpler. I work less. I sleep better. I laugh more than I used to. And sometimes, late at night, I think about the man I was before everything happened. The exhausted husband desperately trying to earn love through endless sacrifice. I don't hate that version of myself anymore. I just wish he had realized sooner that loyalty should never require self-destruction. And that was the moment I finally understood something that changed my life forever. Sometimes the greatest betrayal isn't losing money, trust, or even a marriage. It's losing yourself while trying to keep someone else happy. For years, I believed love meant sacrificing silently, working harder, giving more, and ignoring every warning sign just to hold a relationship together. But real love doesn't drain you empty. Real love doesn't make you feel guilty for being responsible. And real loyalty never asks you to destroy yourself to prove your worth. In the end, Emily didn't lose me because I stopped loving her. She lost me because she stopped valuing the man who would have done anything for her. And when the money disappeared, so did the fantasy she built her life around. The hardest part wasn't signing the divorce papers. It was accepting that the person I was fighting for no longer existed. But strangely enough, that truth also set me free. So if you're watching this and something in your spirit keeps telling you that you're being used, manipulated, or emotionally drained, listen to that voice. Because protecting your peace is not weakness. Walking away from betrayal is not failure. And no matter how much you love someone, never let them turn your loyalty into the weapon that destroys your life. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is finally choose themselves.